He thought it would be just another undercover shift, a routine check on one of his restaurants. But what he discovered that night changed everything he thought he knew about hard work, sacrifice, and kindness. This is the story of an undercover boss who followed a waiter and uncovered a secret that broke him to the core. It all started one Friday night in Chicago. The restaurant was packed. Laughter, clinking glasses, and the smell of sizzling steak filled the air. Hidden among the customers was a man in a plain shirt and a ball cap. No one knew he was actually Ethan Carter, the CEO of the entire restaurant chain. Ethan had decided to go undercover after hearing complaints about one of his locations falling behind on service. He wanted to see the truth for himself. But he wasn't expecting to meet Jake, a 24-year-old waiter who barely said a word, worked twice as fast as everyone else, and refused to take breaks, even for food. At first, Ethan thought Jake was just shy. But as the hours passed, he noticed something strange. Every time the staff took their lunch break, Jake would quietly slip outside instead of eating. When a coworker offered him fries, he smiled and said, "No thanks, I'm good." But Ethan could tell he wasn't good. That night, after closing, Ethan saw Jake sitting on a crate behind the restaurant, staring at his phone, his stomach audibly growling. It was freezing outside. Ethan approached him casually, still pretending to be just another trainee. "Hey man, you didn't eat all day," Ethan said. "You on a diet or something?" Jake laughed softly. "Nah, just saving money, trying to keep up with bills." The way he said it hit Ethan differently. It wasn't pride. It was pain. Over the next few days, Ethan quietly observed Jake. He was always the first to arrive and the last to leave. He never complained, even when customers were rude or coworkers slacked off. But there was one thing that didn't sit right. Every night after work, Jake would pack up leftover bread rolls, wrap them carefully in napkins, and slip them into his backpack. Ethan's curiosity turned into concern. So one night after Jake left, Ethan followed him, discreetly a few cars behind. Jake's route didn't lead home. Instead, it led to a dimly lit parking lot behind an old apartment complex. Jake parked his bike, walked over to a rusted van, and gently knocked twice on the side door. When it opened, Ethan's heart stopped. Inside the van was a little girl, maybe 6 years old, wrapped in a blanket. She looked pale, sick, and weak. Jake handed her the bread rolls and a bottle of water, smiling like everything was okay. "Here you go, sweetheart," he said softly. "Daddy's got dinner." Ethan froze. Jake was living in his car. The next morning, Ethan couldn't concentrate. The image of that little girl haunted him. He asked one of the managers about Jake. The answer broke him even more. Jake had been working full-time for nearly a year but refused any help or charity. His wife had died of cancer, leaving him alone with their daughter, Lily. Medical bills had drained everything. Their apartment was gone. But Jake never missed a single shift. Ethan knew what he had to do. A week later, he arranged a staff meeting. Cameras were set up, but everyone thought it was for a training video. Jake stood in the back, looking confused. Ethan walked in wearing a suit this time, no disguise, no hat. "Good morning, everyone," he began. "There's something I need to say." The staff went silent. Then Ethan turned to Jake. "Jake," he said, "I've been watching you." Jake looked shocked. "Sir, I came here undercover," Ethan continued, his voice breaking slightly, "and I saw how hard you work, but I also saw your life outside these walls. You didn't know anyone was watching, but you've shown more strength, humility, and love than anyone I've ever met." Jake's eyes filled with tears. He didn't know what to say. Ethan took a deep breath. No father should have to choose between feeding his child and feeding himself. Starting today, that ends. He handed Jake an envelope. Inside was a check for $50,000, enough to cover housing, medical bills, and a new start. But that wasn't all. Ethan smiled. "We also found a home for you and Lily, fully furnished, 6 months rent paid. And one more thing." He held up a small keychain. "That's for your new car. You won't need to bike to work anymore." The room erupted in applause. Jake broke down crying, unable to speak. "I don't deserve this," he finally whispered. "Yes, you do," Ethan said, putting a hand on his shoulder. "Because you never stopped showing up. Even when life tried to break you." Jake hugged him, shaking, tears soaking his uniform. A few weeks later, the company released the undercover footage as part of a new employee appreciation campaign. The video went viral, reaching millions of people around the world. Comments poured in, people offering to help, donate, and share their own stories of struggle and hope. And at the end of the video, there was one simple message on the screen: be kind. You never know what someone's fighting through. Today, Jake and Lily live in a cozy apartment not far from the restaurant. Lily's health has improved, and Jake still works for the company. This time as a manager, helping train new staff. And every night before closing, he makes sure there's a tray of fresh bread packed up, just in case another family out there needs a little hope to keep going. Because sometimes, the most powerful undercover stories aren't about exposing lies. They're about discovering the quiet heroes hiding in plain sight. It had been 3 months since that emotional day when Jake's life changed forever. The viral video had made headlines. Donations poured in. The restaurant's reputation skyrocketed. But for Ethan Carter, the undercover boss who had found Jake's heartbreaking secret, something still didn't feel right. First, it was just a feeling, quiet unease. Maybe it was the way Jake avoided cameras after the viral video, or how every now and then he seemed distant, haunted. Ethan brushed it off. After all, the man had been through enough. Losing a wife, raising a sick child, living out of a van. It made sense he'd be guarded. But then, one chilly morning, an email landed in Ethan's inbox. No subject line. No Sendername. Just a message that said, "You should know who your new manager really is." Attached was a photo. Grainy, black and white, looked like a mugshot. The face was unmistakable. It was Jake. Ethan froze. The email didn't say much else, just a case number and a link to a public record database. Against his better judgment, Ethan clicked. And there it was, a name he'd never heard before. Jacob Allen Whitmore, arrested in 2015. Charges: armed robbery, aggravated assault. Ethan's heart sank. Was it a mistake? The man he knew, the man who worked tirelessly, loved his daughter, and asked for nothing, couldn't be that person. But the records were real. For days, Ethan couldn't sleep. He didn't want to believe it. But the more he dug, the more the truth started to unfold. And it wasn't what he expected. He found an old news article. Local man arrested in gas station robbery attempt. Suspect claims he was protecting clerk from armed customer. According to the report, Jake, then 20 years old, had been at the wrong place at the wrong time. A robbery gone wrong. Witnesses said he wrestled the gun from the real assailant. But when the police arrived, he was the one holding the weapon. The actual robber fled. No one believed Jake's story. He didn't have money for a lawyer, so he took a plea deal, 3 years in state prison. 3 years. That's where Ethan stopped reading. His chest tightened. Suddenly, Jake's humility, his quiet strength. It all made sense. He wasn't just a man who'd fallen on hard times. He was someone trying to rewrite his story. But Ethan needed to know the full truth. He waited until the end of a shift one evening, when the restaurant had emptied out. Jake was cleaning tables, humming softly under his breath. "Jake," Ethan said, stepping forward. Jake looked up, smiling. "Hey, boss. What's up?" Ethan hesitated. "We need to talk." Jake's smile faded. "Is everything okay?" Ethan placed the printed article on the counter. "I got an email." Jake's face went pale. His eyes dropped to the paper. He didn't say a word. After a long silence, he finally whispered, "You weren't supposed to find that." Ethan's tone softened. "Why didn't you tell me?" Jake ran a hand over his face. "Because people don't look at ex-cons the same way, sir. They see what's on paper, not what's in front of them. I wanted to start fresh. For Lily." Ethan sat across from him. "Tell me what happened." Jake took a deep breath. "I was 20, dumb, working at a gas station overnight to save for college. One night, a guy came in with a gun. He pointed it at my coworker, screaming for cash. I grabbed him, We fought. The gun went off, but nobody got hit. When the cops showed up, I was holding the weapon. The robber ran. They thought it was me. He looked down, voice cracking. I didn't fight the charges because I couldn't afford to. I just wanted it over with. My mom. She died while I was inside. The room went still. Ethan didn't know what to say. Jake continued. When I got out, no one would hire me. I couldn't rent, couldn't even volunteer. Then I met Sarah, Lily's mom. She didn't care about my past. She believed in me. For the first time, someone did. His voice trembled. When she got sick, I promised her I'd make sure Lily never went through what I did. I've been trying to keep that promise ever since. Tears welled in Ethan's eyes. Jake, you should have told me. Jake shook his head. You gave me a second chance without even knowing it. That's more than I deserved. Ethan leaned forward. No, you earned it. A week later, Ethan called an emergency board meeting. His executives were panicking about the leaked record. They worried it would ruin the company's image. But Ethan wasn't having it. He stood at the head of the table and said, if we're going to talk about second chances, then we'd better mean it. Jake's story isn't bad publicity. It's proof that redemption is real. Against all advice, Ethan released a follow-up video. Told the real story. The arrest, the injustice, the comeback. The internet exploded. People who'd been in similar situations began sharing their stories. Hashtags like #SecondChanceJake and #RedemptionIsReal trended for days. And the best part? Within a month, the restaurant chain launched a new hiring initiative for former inmates and people with criminal records who couldn't find work. They called it the Lily Project, named after Jake's daughter. When Ethan told Jake about it, Jake broke down again. You didn't just change my life, he said. You're changing others too. Ethan smiled. No, Jake, you did that. Months later, something incredible happened. The man who had actually committed the gas station robbery, long gone, long forgotten, was caught in another state. He confessed to everything, clearing Jake's name completely. When Jake got the call, he stood frozen in disbelief. He wasn't just free, he was redeemed. That night, he sat with Lily in their new living room, watching the sunset through clean glass windows. She leaned against him and whispered, Daddy, does this mean we can finally stop running? Jake smiled, tears in his eyes. Yeah, baby, we can finally stop running. And somewhere across town, Ethan Carter watched the latest company video go live. Jake's story, told from beginning to end. No disguises, no lies, just truth. Because sometimes the real undercover mission isn't to expose someone. It's to uncover the humanity the world forgot to see. 6 months had passed since Jake's name was cleared. His life, for the first time in years, felt normal, peaceful. He had a real apartment now, a job he loved. His daughter Lily's laughter filled every room. The weight he'd carried for a decade had finally lifted. But one quiet morning, as he was getting Lily ready for school, the mail slot clattered. A single white envelope slid through. No return address, just his name, Jacob Whitmore. He almost didn't open it, but something, curiosity, maybe intuition, made him tear the seal. Inside was a letter, written in messy, uneven handwriting. The first line froze him in place. You don't know me, but I owe you my life. I'm the man who ran. Jake sank into a chair. His hands shook as he read. Back in 2015, at that gas station, you tried to stop me. You didn't have to. You could have let me hurt that clerk. But you didn't. You grabbed me. You saved her. I ran and you paid the price. I've been running ever since. Jake's heart raced. The letter went on. They caught me last year in Nevada. I confessed. I told them what you did. I thought that'd be the end, but I can't sleep at night. I see your face every time I close my eyes. You tried to do good, and I made you suffer for it. Jake stared at the words, the ink smudged by what looked like teardrops. I heard what you've done since the Lily Project, the second chance jobs. You turned your pain into something good. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I hope one day you can give it. At the bottom, a name, Marcus Hale. Jake leaned back, the room spinning. Lily walked in, clutching her backpack. Daddy, are you okay? He smiled faintly, tucking the letter into his jacket. Yeah, baby, just thinking about how far we've come. But inside, his mind raced. Later that week, Jake drove to the state prison. He'd requested a meeting. Against every instinct, he needed to see the man face to face, the man who'd stolen his freedom. The waiting room buzzed with quiet voices. A guard led him down a long corridor to a small glass booth. On the other side sat Marcus, older now, thinner. His eyes, once hard, looked tired, hollow. When he saw Jake, he flinched, as if expecting anger. Jake sat down. Silence filled the air between them. Finally, Jake spoke softly. Why now? Marcus swallowed hard. Because I couldn't carry it anymore. You spent 3 years in a cell that should have been mine. I've watched your videos. I've seen what you've done. You became the man I should have been. Jake's jaw clenched. You ruined my life. Marcus nodded, tears forming. I know, and I'd give anything to undo it. But if it means anything, you saved mine. That night, I wasn't just robbing that store. I was ready to die. You stopped me from pulling the trigger. You gave me a second chance, even when you didn't know it. Jake stared at him for a long time. I hated you, he whispered. Every night in that cell, I dreamed of this moment, of what I'd say. But now, he sighed. Now I just feel tired. Marcus looked down. You don't owe me forgiveness. Jake hesitated, then said quietly, No, but maybe I need to give it to move on. They sat in silence. Two broken men, connected by one terrible night and the weight of years lost. Before leaving, Jake slid an envelope through the slot in the glass. Marcus frowned. What's this? Jake stood. A letter, for when you get out. It's a job offer. Marcus blinked. You're serious? Jake nodded. The Lily Project doesn't just talk about second chances. It lives by it. Then he turned and walked away. Outside, the sunlight hit his face. He closed his eyes and exhaled. For the first time, forgiveness didn't feel like weakness. Felt like freedom. That night, Jake told Lily everything. Every truth he had once hidden. She listened quietly, then hugged him tight. You're my hero, Daddy, she whispered. Not because you're perfect, but because you never gave up. Tears burned his eyes. I didn't give up because of you, sweetheart. Months later, the Lily Project expanded nationwide. News networks called it the most inspiring second chance initiative in America. Former inmates found work, stability, and dignity. Jake rarely talked about his past anymore, but he carried the lessons everywhere he went. And then one last twist. On the first anniversary of the Lily Project's launch, Jake received a package from the prison. Inside was a small, hand-carved wooden keychain shaped like a dove. Attached was a note. Freedom looks good on you. Thank you for teaching me what it really means. Marcus. Jake held the keychain for a long time, staring at the little bird. He smiled, because in the end, it wasn't about revenge or redemption, it was about release. The kind that starts when you stop running from your past and start walking toward your truth. He hung the keychain on his rearview mirror, started his car, and looked over at Lily in the passenger seat. Ready for school, kiddo? She nodded. Always. As they drove off, the morning sun spilled across the dashboard, catching the carved dove as it swung gently, free at last. And with that, the undercover story came to an end. Not with a secret exposed, but a soul set free.